Chris and Rita Smith are celebrating the 4th birthday of their daughter, Pam. In the past year, Pam has developed autism. Pam's doctor enlightened them to the hardships and limitations Pam will experience in life. The doctor also presented the alternative option of prematurely ending Pam's life to avoid the difficult life she would face. As they tucked her in bed that night, they explained to Pam how challenging her life would be and how she will never have to experience these challenges when she visits this special clinic in the morning. Chris and Rita have found themselves on the road of eugenics. This is a scenario that could happen in a society that embraces the idea of eugenics. Eugenics demands perfection and will become the path to society's suicide if embraced. At a young age, I was deemed a failure to thrive, and my parents were told that I would have mobility issues. I'm standing here today, though, and obviously not a failure to thrive. Have you ever felt inadequate or like you weren't good enough? Have you ever felt like you can't measure up to the standard? Society should accept a person based on the fact that they're human and they're alive, instead of this idea of perfection, which eugenics is based on. Today, I'm going to talk about the overview of eugenics and what the alternatives are. To get started, eugenics is derived from the Greek, meaning well-bred. As Lars Grude talks about in his article, Eugenics and Euthanasia Then and Now, published in 2010. In his article, he also talks about how Sir Francis Galton in 1883 developed this, which is a science of improving human stock. It's the idea that if you can take out the bad genes, that you will create a perfect society. Gerald O'Brien, in his article, Eugenics, Genetics, and the Minority Group Model of Disabilities, the Implications of Social Work Advocacy, published in 2012, and the article Regulating Eugenics by Harvard Law Review, published in 2008, also talked about this. They explain that improving human stock can be done through positive eugenics, which is the idea of encouraging the strong and healthy to reproduce more, and discouraging or preventing the inferior and weak to not produce, which is known as negative eugenics. In the United States in the early 20th century, the nation believed that the feeble-minded, and particularly morons as they were called, were believed to be the nucleus from which a wide range of social evils emanated. The primary methods of eugenic control included forced institutionalization and involuntary sterilization, as Gerald O'Brien talks about in his 2011 article. He also talked about the case of Buck versus Bell, which was upheld by the Supreme Court in 1927, which allowed states, if they choose, to pass law to involuntarily sterilize those who were seen as unfit. United States was not the only nation, though, to accept this idea. More horrifically, Germany also accepted this idea in the early 20th century. As Gerald states, within his first year in power, Hitler, instituted a sweeping eugenic sterilization law that was targeted at people with mental and physical disabilities. This pushed Germany to the forefront, and approximately 400,000 German citizens were forcibly sterilized. This was before the Holocaust. And as the 2012 London Olympics talked about in the eugenics segment.
Eugenics was the science of improving the genetic composition of a population. There was a negative side, the elimination of defectives that corrupted the gene pool. The most distorted manifestation of this science was Nazi Germany. Through eugenics, Adolf Hitler thought he could breed the Aryan race. Through eugenics, those deemed undesirable by the Nazis, the Roma, the promiscuous, communists, homosexuals, the entire Jewish race could be exterminated. Genetic cleansing became genocide.
Unfortunately, that was not the end of eugenics. Similar practices such as euthanasia have come alive again. Both the Netherlands and Belgium accept this practice for those that are considered to have unbearable pain or suffering in life. As Lars Groos talked about in his article 2010, he outlines the protocol used by the government of the Netherlands, which outlines this same standard on their website. The diagnosis and prognosis must be certain. Hopeless, unbearable suffering must be present. The diagnosis, prognosis, and unbearable suffering must be confirmed by at least one independent doctor. Both parents must give informed consent, and the procedure must be performed in accordance with the accepted medical standards. Between 15 and 20 newborns are euthanized each year in the Netherlands. With the protocol given, you might think that this is harmless. But what we've done, once again, is said that human life, as just life, is not valuable enough. That it must have a high quality of life in order to be worthy to live. The alternatives of eugenics is to value life unconditionally, meaning to embrace our diversity in culture, both our strengths and our weaknesses, appreciating athletes for their athleticism and composers for their songs, and many other talents throughout society. When we start to put a standard on how a person should be, we begin down a path where where we run the risk of terminating our society. In a society embracing eugenics, we would miss out on famous people such as Beethoven, a famous composer who was deaf, Franklin Roosevelt, who had polio during his presidency, and Joni Eareckson Tada, a quadriplegic who is a famous artist, all of whom have overcome the odds and given to society. In conclusion, eugenics demands perfection and will become the path to society's suicide if embraced. As a people, we need to reject the idea that it's possible for a person or people to be superior than others. If we aren't all equal, no matter our race, beliefs, or ability, we will begin as we did in the early 20th century and as Germany did during the Holocaust, and we will attack each other. As the Reverend Martin Niemöller, a pastor in the German Confessing Church who spent 7 years in a concentration camp, said, "First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the labor leaders, and I did not speak out because I was not a labor leader. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Will we, as humans, remain silent until you find yourself alone? Or will we speak out to those being persecuted and terminated through euthanasia and the practices of eugenics before we eliminate the entire human race?"